Hello, I think I am live. Let me see what's going on with my camera. Give me just a minute. Maybe I need to move this. Hi, okay, I see people joining. Great. This is a different setup. Guys, wouldn't you know that my thing switched to the new Facebook just in time for this? So it looks a little different. But okay, I see all the important things. It seems like hopefully you guys can see me. Great. Thank you, Charity. Thank you, Ellen, for confirming. I was not sure there for a second. So I will give folks a couple minutes here to join. I wanted to ask for everyone. Hi, Janine, Aunt Janine. Wanted to give everyone the opportunity to introduce yourselves to each other as well. Kind of a cool thing is that we actually have people in this group from all over the country and even a couple people from other countries. So if you guys could just write in and say where you're watching from, that would be awesome. And then I also wanted to encourage everyone to really enter into our time together today with a very clear intention, a very clear focused intention for why you wanted to be here, what you're hoping to get out of this experience. So I'd like you to just introduce yourselves in the comments, say your name, where you're watching from. I guess we can all see your names. And then finish this sentence. I joined this group so I can blank. What is it that you are chiefly hoping to do right now? So I'll give people some time to think about that. And while you're doing that, I wanted to share my statement of intention for creating this group and for doing this work. And for the purposes of time, I get so passionate about this that sometimes I start kind of getting on a bunny trail. So I wrote it out. So I hope you don't mind if I just go ahead and read it to save us some time. So I created this group because I believe the same exact skills that make improv successful on stage are the skills that will help us depolarize our families, neighborhoods, churches, and ultimately our country. The purpose of that depolarization is so we can work together and find surprising fellow conspirators to do the work of protecting our planet and the people we share it with. So that's ultimately my deep why. The goal of this work is that we can work together to build a future that is just and then consequently that is peaceful. It's possible. I believe that with my whole heart, that this is a possible thing that we are aspiring to do together. We don't have to stay stuck in gridlock forever, accomplishing so little that's actually meaningful because we are so divided. We don't have to stay on this path, but what it's going to take to get off this path is for people of love to make a really brave choice, which is that we're not going to kind of slink back into our echo chambers. We're not going to get super comfortable posting things that are mean-spirited and name-calling and whatever because it's funny or because we're like, it's true, or because we know that we'll get clapter from the people in our echo chambers. We're not going to do that. We're going to make a brave and courageous promise to ourselves and to each other that instead of that, we are going to build bridges and we are going to believe that there are people of love who are going to vote for somebody else. There are people of love who share our interests in protecting our beautiful planet and the people we share it with. And we are going to decide that we're going to work together in order to accomplish that. So I see that it says I'm still live. I still can't see my own feed. So if you guys can still hear me, can you just give me like a thumbs up in the comments to let me know this is still working? Maybe you're typing your statements of intention, and that's good too. So if you're just joining us, please introduce yourself. Let me know where you're watching from, and then fill in this statement of intention. Even if you're watching the replay later, I hope you'll still do this because I'll come back and look at the comments. I joined this group so I can blank. What is your intention for this? Are you primarily hoping to provide some reconciliation in your family? Are you primarily hoping to do some peace building in your community, in your neighborhood? Are you maybe experiencing some division in your church or maybe in your circle of friends? Where is it that you're hoping to apply this? If you can share that in the comments, I would love to see that. Okay, So I'm going to move on to 3 quick asks for our time together today. The first is, please understand that we are only talking about political and religious polarization right now. That's what we're talking about. In the past, I have done work around trauma, around various kinds of violence or sexual assault that people may experience. And so I have even worked alongside a trauma therapist who may be joining us later. I can't see who is all on here, so she may already be watching. But so if you have been kind of in my circle for a while, you may have heard me talk about some of these principles of forgiveness and healing in that context. And I just want to be clear that that's not where we're headed today. The reason is that it will be very easy as you're hearing me offer suggestions for doing the work of depolarization in your family. It would be very easy for you to get hung up on some very traumatic experiences and have a lot of trouble applying this to your situation if you're getting hung up on some of those very personal, violent, traumatic experiences. So know that today we're talking about the plethora of ways we create division by sharing hurtful things on Facebook, by the little microaggressions at Thanksgiving, by the little this, that, and the other thing that we say to each other and kind of assert dominance or make it known to each other that, you know, we're trying to prove something or be powerful. So I'm not seeing any thumbs ups in the comments, and it's making me wonder, oh, great, I had to scroll, you guys. Scrolling is what I needed to do. Please forgive my lack of tech savviness. I'm figuring it out right alongside you guys. Okay, so thank you for all of your comments. I will go through here and get back to them afterwards. So that's ask number 1. Understand that our focus today is on political and religious polarization, and if you have experienced trauma and if you are kind of going through some of the practices that I will teach in our time today and getting hung up on something that was traumatic that you experienced, please feel free to reach out to me separately, privately. I would love to be a support and an encouragement to you. But for our purposes today, we're focusing on the political division in our country and in our families. Number 2, repackage these truths as you need. So I can't remove my identity without losing authenticity, right? I come from a Christian background. I tend to be a more liberal person. I am a comedian and a Mennonite and a social worker, and you're going to hear that flavor of who I am as I'm sharing this. But I see you. If you have a different background, and there are so many, this is not an echo chamber, like I shared earlier in this group. There are people from many, many, many backgrounds present here today, and I'm super grateful for that. So if you hear me say something and you're like, that sounds like not the way I would say that, I would be deeply appreciative if you would try to repackage it in words that do make sense to you and receive the truth regardless of the wrapping paper that I provided in. Does that make sense? So I'm going to ask you for that. Number 3 ask is be specific in your questions and comments. So as I'm going through this content, you may just want to share something on the side or have a question or be like, amen. I super welcome all of that. I love to know what resonates, and I love to know, if there's something that's not making sense and you'd like me to elaborate more in a separate video. Happy to know that too. But my process is going to be to just get in the zone here, get tapped into this work that I do and my purpose for our time here together today, and I won't be like reading through the comments. That I know some people are real good at doing that on Facebook Live. That's not how I do it. I'll go back through the comments and I will get back to you all later. But if you aren't specific on what specifically you're talking about in the questions and comments, I won't know later. So just be specific, and then I will be glad to keep the conversation rolling later. Okay, I'm going to take a minute to do a deep breath. I'm feeling a little bit nervous. I'm going to take a deep breath, though, because this work is deeply powerful and meaningful to me, and I want to make sure my headspace is in the right spot. So I'm going to take a deep breath, and then we're going to get into this content. Okay. Thank you guys so much for being here. it touched my heart to see the people in this group. We are people from very different backgrounds, very different experiences, very different perspectives on what's happening in our world right now. And it means so much to me that you guys are spending this time together. I know that while I'm sharing, there may be things that you see differently, and that's okay. What I want to say right now is that it is my intention to be a good steward of your presence. It is my intention to be a good steward of your contributions, even if we don't agree on everything. I believe that we can stir up some really good conversation that takes us into a beautiful place in our country. I think we can stir up some really powerful conversations even through our disagreement. So it's my choice not to be afraid of you, and I hope it'll be your choice not to be afraid of me as well. Okay, so today we're here to talk about salvaging relationships and reaching across the divide. The first thing that I teach in this work is that our goal, when we have noticed that there is a relationship that we want to salvage, there are some relationships that we don't want to. And what we do is guilt ourselves about the fact that we don't want to. We guilt ourselves about the fact that what I really want is space. What I really want is boundaries that allow me to be wherever I want, which is somewhere else on Thanksgiving or whatever. And we feel shame and guilt around that. And so you may have stepped into this group thinking, I'd really love to salvage a relationship. And then you're hearing me say this and you're like, oh, actually, I don't want to salvage that relationship. There's something else that I'm hoping to get out of this. So give yourself permission to want what you want, right? Give yourself permission to want what you want and to need what you need. But when we've identified relationships that we do want to salvage and relationships in which we think there is potential to build something beautiful and to learn something from each other, when we have identified those opportunities, the first goal is not to come into those relationships with an intervention. The very first goal is to reattach ourselves to who we really are, which is a person of love. So I think one of the things I have chiefly realized as I've been reflecting on this work in my own life is that I'm a passionate person and I am a woman of conviction. But the only reason that I am a woman of conviction is because I am a woman of love. And it is that love that has informed me that injustice is happening. And it is that love that has informed me that there are opportunities for us as a country to do better. So before I get stuck on just my conviction and my passion and my fire and that stuff that's good and has a place, even behind that is love. And that love, that deep love, is what will help me build a bridge to the people that I care most about. So we're going to talk about how to do that. So I see that we're already 13 minutes in. I had a whole example about Cesar Millan. Can you guys tell me in the comments if anyone knows who that person is? We just got a puppy, and so we've been watching some Cesar Millan. He's like the dog whisperer. And what I love about him is that his whole philosophy is you approach with understanding and not fear. He loves these dogs, and that is the reason why he is able to walk into literally any situation with vicious dogs or dogs that are known to attack people, and he can walk in there and build a relationship with that animal and not get bit because he is confident and he knows who that dog really is. And that is very much what we're attempting to do here. We want to remember who this person really is, even if you have evidence. This is one thing in the work that I do. I guess I didn't even talk about that at all. I'm just assuming you guys know. I do work in communities and offices. Charity says she doesn't know Cesar Millan. It's worth a YouTube search. He's a delightful man that does miracles with animals. So I do work in hoping to do more work in churches that are experiencing division, but mainly my background has been in corporate and communities and families, kind of helping people be who they mean to be when there is division and when there is disagreement. And quite often when I come into a situation, people are really ready to tell me who the problem is and show me all the evidence to prove to me that this person is the problem. And that do you want to see the emails? Let me show you the text messages. Let me show you the proof that this person is a racist, a bigot, a terrible boss, whatever it is. And I say, no, I don't want to see. I don't want to see the texts and the emails, and I don't want to see whatever it is, because I believe you. I believe that your experience has been painful, and I am not here to tell you that you are not right for being hurt, or that you're not right for being angry. That's not what I'm here to do. But what I am here to do is say we are all more than the worst stuff about us. And so even if you're right that you have seen things that are hurtful and painful and unhelpful and unproductive, counterproductive, we want to believe, and because it's true, that this person is more than that one thing. So that's where this comes in. It's important for us to get re-rooted in that love, so that we can do the work of giving people grace. So, first piece of advice that I have, I don't know if you're taking notes, this may be a good time to get a pen out if you have one. The first piece of advice that I have for you is to stop reliving what was said or what was done. So I know for me, I am someone who will, at 11 o'clock at night or later, if I wake up because I had to pee or something, I'll lay back down in my bed, and then I will just start rehashing some random thing from whenever ago in my life. And I'll start reliving what happened or imagining arguments. And I know that I'm not alone in this, because there have been plenty of people affirming that they do this as well, as I've done this work. So what we want to do is to stop reliving that thing. It is a hard thing to do. See, I am bouncing back and forth between the comments. It is a hard thing to do. But this is what you can do instead. When that mental movie starts playing in your brain, and you're just remembering what this person said or did that was so hurtful, instead of continuing down that path of why would they have done that? And what do I wish I would have said? Did I do something to bring that on? We just step into shame or resentment, or even more, solidifying our belief that this person is not possible to build with. So instead of that, I want you to ask yourself this question. What did those words or actions make me feel about myself? So finish that all the way out. What did that make me feel about myself? So it's easy to just be well, it made me feel angry. But how did it make you feel about yourself? Because what this is going to ultimately help us do is identify some of the limiting beliefs. And that's ultimately where we're headed in this exercise. For example, I was in a situation where I was having a lot of trouble going home for the holidays, because somebody in my extended family, a family member of mine, we had just sort of created this dynamic, and I don't know the extent to which he was actively participating in this, or to the extent to which I was just building this up in my brain. But his family had had a lot more money than my family growing up, and I had created this need to prove that I was not, just this need to prove myself to him, which was so unnecessary. But I would get so obsessed with this. And it was every career decision, every decision that I made in my life, it felt like I had this ghost of this person hanging over my head, watching me, deciding if I was making good enough choices or being a, good enough adult or whatever. And over time, we had certainly developed different political opinions about things, which only kind of fed into this, I felt judged by him for not having as much money, but then I was definitely judging him because I felt I might not have as much money as you, but I'm definitely a better person. I was sort of fueling it with this self-righteous energy. And instead of, what I realized in time is the limiting belief that I have about this relationship is that this person thinks that I am less than him. This person thinks that I am not a successful adult. This person thinks that I am not as smart, or whatever, fill in the blanks. And I realized, this is because of a situation that happened when we were kids, and we were flipping through a magazine around Christmas time, deciding what do we hope our parents give us for Christmas? We were flipping through this magazine, and I found a snowboard, and I was I hope that this is what I get for Christmas. And he looked at that, and he said to me, yeah, that's what I'm asking for too, but your parents probably can't afford it. And that was so painful. Like, I remember like that hot feeling just washing over me, and just like that like lump in my throat, and I did not want to cry in front of him. And I remember like walking into the bathroom at his family's house and just like crying, just like that hot, angry cry of like, what you said is probably true. And I'm embarrassed about it. And also, why do you know that? Like, is this, I started wondering, like, is this just what people say about my family when we're not around? Like, so, it just started like building up in my brain to like, I am not safe. So here's what I want you to see in this example. What it was helpful for me to do, instead of continuing to remember what that felt like and living in this place of hearing those words get said to me, and that awful feeling of just like waiting for my mom to come pick me up, and just like looking out the window of their living room being like, when is my mom going to get here? I just don't want to be here anymore. I hate this so much. I'm so embarrassed about myself. Like, just this awful feeling. Instead of just living in that place of like hurt, it was helpful for me to be like, what did that make me believe about myself? It made me believe about myself that I wasn't safe. It made me believe about myself that I was less than. It made me believe about myself that that I was not worthy, that I wasn't worthy of the things that I wanted. That it made me believe about myself that it's fine for me to want stuff, but I should just get used to not having it. I should just get used to that things just won't work out that way for me. And so it was helpful for me to start doing these exercises and being like, wow, okay, so I've identified some things that I started believing about myself. Those things aren't true, though. Let me reroot in the deep truth about myself. So whatever your situation is, whatever your difficult thing is that you rehash through your brain, there are many examples that I can think of from my life, from my career, the worst boss that I ever had. There are plenty of hurtful situations that you can think of. And maybe it's helpful to spend some time after our session together just actively thinking, okay, the people in my life that I have the hardest time dealing with, one of the solutions people try to come up with is just try really hard to stop thinking about, what they've done that's hurtful. I encourage you to handle it differently. Instead of just deciding, I just won't think about them, I'll just try really hard to push away those bad feelings. Ask yourself, what limiting beliefs started growing in my heart and my brain about myself and about this person because of those situations? Is this making sense so far? Can you guys understand how you might reverse engineer a painful situation? Reverse engineer might not be the right words, but treat it like a gold mine. In these painful situations are all kinds of limiting beliefs. Those painful things continue to bother you for a reason. And that reason is that they are informing something about yourself to you. Those situations made you feel some kind of way about yourself. What was it? Did you feel like, maybe you felt like, my voice doesn't matter in my own family. My perspective is, not valued here. If I speak up about who I am, I won't be accepted. Maybe it was something like that. But decide who you really are. You know that you are worthy of love, that you are worthy of acceptance. You know that you are capable. So I have this grounding mantra that I use very frequently in my life. Capable, courageous, willing, worthy. I am capable, I am courageous, I am willing, I am worthy. That is my deep truth about myself. And so when I'm like figuring out like these painful situations and I just stop the reel of like what happened, what do I wish I would have said? If only I had that moment back and I would say something differently. Instead of that, now I make it my job to be like, what limiting belief am I still holding on to? And let me get re-rooted in the deep truth, my deep truth about me. So asking yourself, what did that make me believe about me? What did that make me believe about them? Those two questions. Start looking for limiting beliefs. And that is a much better use of your time, because the more curious you can be, we're going to employ our improv skill of curiosity here. Chosen curiosity instead of judgment or instead of certainty. Because it's really easy in these painful situations to get certain about what it means? Well, that's because this is the kind of person who ... right? That's because it's just not possible to have a healthy relationship here because blah, 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 whatever the reason is. This is the kind of person that I'm dealing with. So instead of that, if that's not what you want to be true, then start asking yourself, like, what is the deep truth? How can I get re-grounded in the deep truth? And don't worry, because we have more suggestions to help you out with this. Piece of advice number 2. So piece of advice number 1 was stop reliving what was said or what was done. Like, interrupt that mental movie with curiosity questions. Like, what are the limiting beliefs? Piece of advice number 2, chosen curiosity versus triggered curiosity. Okay? So what this means is that there are times when you get curious because you are hurting, because something painful has just happened, because someone like your husband, this is an example from my own life, said, "You are just like your dad." And I'm like, what do you mean by that? How dare you? And then, I'm like in this whole shame spiral when nothing maybe was meant by that other than in this moment, I am seeing your father in your current mannerisms. But it's certainly easy to realize, I have a bear trap in my brain about certain things. And when that happens, I immediately start doing this curiosity and this self-exploration in a way that only leads me to shame. When we are triggered into reflection, it usually leads to shame. When we choose curiosity, this is a time when we are in alignment. So what I mean is we have equal faith in who we are, who this other person is, and the process of building something together piece by piece. It's not my job 100% to fix it. It's not everybody else's job without my participation. I have faith that it is safe to build something little bit by little bit by little bit by little bit. It's okay that I don't know 11 steps down the road how it will play out. That's okay. So when we have faith in ourselves, our scene partners, and the process, we are in alignment. And when you are in alignment, then you are able to reflect in a way that is healthy. You're able to do some real digging in your soul basement, as I like to call it, to kind of figure out what is it that is causing me to react so intensely to this thing. Why is it? Why might it be that I am so triggered by this thing, or that I am so deeply upset about this? We can do that curiosity work when we are in alignment and when we have chosen. I like to take time, 4 times a year. I go away by myself to do some kind of intensive soul basement work. But wherever it is, it doesn't even have to be as extreme as that, but just decide on times. This is when I will do this work. Not right after I have just gotten negative feedback. Not right after someone has said something mean in the comments of my YouTube channel. Not when I'm feeling vulnerable, whatever. You get what I'm saying? Chosen curiosity versus triggered curiosity. That will help you explore the situation in a productive way. Number 3, write out some thank you statements. So when we are trying to salvage relationships, it is very important to remember that even if you're right about the fact that this person has said something that is hurtful, even if you are correct, even if you could show the email or the text message or a video of the Thanksgiving exchange to any single one of your friends or your therapist and they would readily agree with you, even if that's the case, this person is more than the worst thing about them. Your dad, your cousin, your boss, your neighbor, they are more than the worst thing about them. I am more than the worst thing about me, right? We all need grace for the journey. We all need grace for the journey. And one thing that is helpful for anchoring ourselves in that deep truth is to write out some thank you statements to this person. You don't have to give them to them necessarily. Really, this type of proactive gratitude, it doesn't have to be like, thank you for this. You can also rephrase it like, I love you because this, or I see your heart when this. Remind yourself of who they really are. Your love can't be contrived or superficial. So if you're trying to get hung up on, I don't know, just like forcing yourself into something, you can't arm wrestle yourself into sincere curiosity about this person or sincere, love for them. You can't arm wrestle yourself there, but you can gently notice the ways that you are more alike than unalike, as Maya Angelou says. You can gently allow yourself to feel gratitude for the ways in which your vision is aligned, and the ways in which you are trying to build a world that is just and beautiful and equitable and peaceful. You can remind yourself of the ways in which you share that vision together. So this is where I'll point out attention mechanics. So if you have not heard of attention mechanics, this is something that I think a lot about. So attention mechanics says that what you focus on is what you accelerate. Where focus goes, energy flows, you can say. But basically, you grow more of what you put your attention on. And so if you put your attention on the differences, the negativity, certainly you will grow that, because you will be walking into every exchange with boxing gloves. You will be ready for a fight. You will have rehearsed it for 30 minutes on the drive there. And, people can feel that expectation. They can feel what your expectation is for your time together. So spend some time focusing on who they really are, spend some time really focusing on what is the deep truth about this person, and then allow your awareness of that to grow. Number 4, statement of intention and why reconciliation is important to you in that relationship. So this is tricky, because sometimes what we want is, I want you to accept me. My reason for reconciliation is that I don't feel safe to be here. I don't feel accepted here. This doesn't feel like a loving relationship. And what I think is interesting about love is that, I'll speak from my own perspective, I often perceive love like, do I love this person? Is this a loving relationship? That's my dog in the background. Based on, like, do I feel safe here? Do I feel accepted as my authentic self here? And that makes total sense. But boy, is it hard if that doesn't exist currently in a relationship, especially if it's like, you are tied to this person for whatever the reason is. We don't always get to choose our scene partners, And so maybe you're tied to this person, and there is not this sense of, acceptance and authenticity. Boy, is it hard to be the one that makes the first move, isn't it? But it's critical that we realize we can't be, trying to force this other person to love and accept us if we can't make that move, right? I'm so distracted by my dog right now. What we want from them is what we need to do as well. And so finding ways to accept this person for all of who they are is so critical. And it helps me to write out, like, why is this important to me? Why is this important to me? Is it because, I would love not to dread driving home for Thanksgiving? Is it, I would love, let me think of, like, outside of family. I have been doing some of this work in my own neighborhood where there's been a decent amount of contention the last month or so. I have thought a lot about, like, I want to feel safe in my neighborhood. I want my kids to feel safe in my neighborhood. I want to be safe in my neighborhood. And so that's my why for the reconciliation. So sometimes just really getting anchored into what am I hoping to achieve here can be really helpful. And then one thing that I will post in this group is this template that I have created that I used myself as I've been doing this proactive forgiveness work, is really what this is. If our goal for salvaging relationships is to realize, like, okay, I can't just expect this person to do it all. I need to reattach to love here. I need to get my head on straight here about who I really am and who this person really is. Because this is not going to work if I'm telling myself I am the loving superhero and this is the monster, that I have to tame. That is condescending, right? So if we want to first reattach to love, if we want to salvage a relationship, we first need to reattach to love. And that is also the work of forgiveness. That is also the way that I teach the work of forgiveness, is not that like, okay, what we need to be able to do is remember the most painful, terrible things that have ever happened to us and feel totally zen about it. I just won't be upset anymore about some horrific thing that has happened to me. I'll be able to remember it and I will feel totally peaceful when I think about it. That's not what I think forgiveness is. I think forgiveness is the ability to acknowledge that pain has happened and to be able to not look backwards and feel fine about those things, but to look forwards and think, yes, this has happened and good things are still possible. Yes, pain is present and potential still exists. So this yes and concept is like very integral to improv, accepting what exists, even if we don't understand all of it yet, and being willing to build on top of it. And so what I really felt was helpful to me when I was really doing some of this proactive forgiveness work was to create what I now call a yes and forgiveness narrative, where it was like, let me write out my truth. Be specific about my truth about what happened. And here's the thing, friends, as you start doing this, I'll put the template for this in the group so that you can use it and do some of this work yourself. You're welcome to post in the group if you'd like, but certainly I know that this is very personal. When you take time to write out specifically what happened, this is what comes up quite often for people when they're doing this assignment, is like, oh, it seems so petty to write it down. It seems so petty to write down, that this person hurt my feelings when they said this thing or when they did this thing or when they didn't respond to my text message or when whatever it is. And, people have said to me, I feel like they would call me a snowflake, or I feel like, I don't know, some hurtful thing. We have gotten into a very negative name-calling place, even in our social circles. And so there's this sense of fear, like if I am specific about what happened, then, anyone that's reading this would not understand why it was such a big deal. Doesn't matter. This forgiveness narrative doesn't need to go anywhere. Be specific. Stand in your truth. You are valid. You don't need to exaggerate anything. You don't need to make anything seem like something that it wasn't in order for your feelings of hurt to be valid. Your feelings of pain are valid. It doesn't matter what anybody else would think if they were in that situation. That's how you thought. That's how you felt in that situation, and it's valid. So write down the specifics of what really happened. Write down how you felt about it. Write down a statement of intention. Write down sentiments of gratitude for this person and love for this person. We want to reattach to love. That's who we really are, is extensions of love, right? And then this yes and statement to end this, because I do not think that we find healing in relationships by pretending that pain didn't happen. I think that we find real healing in relationships when we can stand in our integrity and acknowledge the full truth of what has happened and know that imperfect people can still build beautiful things with us, and that the presence of pain is not the absence of possibility. So I'll post that forgiveness narrative template that you can use and do some of that journaling work yourself. And I just know, this has been maybe one of the most transformative things for the people that I've done this work with, is just getting proactive about people before you walk in feeling like today's the day for an intervention. Today's the day for a reckoning in our relationship. Do this personal, soul-centered work first. I call this the forgiveness first approach, because when we do this first, we really equip our future conversations with this person to be so much more successful and productive. So that is the internal work. That is like phase one. If we want to salvage relationships, is this internal heart work. That is so critical to do. So I'll post that yes and forgiveness narrative. And then what I wanted to show you is, so then the next thing we got to do is move external. And that's where we're headed for the next training. But I wanted to offer these quick tidbits of things because I'm sure that you're curious about like, okay, but if I'm like chomping at the bit to confront someone, like maybe you have something that's like percolating like right the heck now and you need some advice. So first thing is to figure out, okay, am I ready to do this? Do I want to do this? And if you are, it might be like, well, what's the most appropriate way to reach out? What's the most appropriate way to make contact with this person? So the first thing that I'm going to show you, and I'll also post this, is this chart that I made. Can everyone see this chart? I don't know how close to zoom in. I'll zoom close and then I'll back up a little bit. So this chart essentially is if you were to make the top horizontal line where the first quadrant is there's not very much to say or there's not very much to learn, and versus there's a lot to say and a lot to learn. And then down here we have there's just a little bit of feeling or there's lots of feeling. So it's like how much is there to learn? How intense is your feeling? Low intensity versus high intensity. And if there's not that much to really say and not that much feeling really, very low intensity, then I think it's best to just text or email. So I'll give you an example in my life. And so I'm a part of a group chat, and it's new family to us. And one person in the group posted this thing that was like, why Democrats are like dogs or something. And it was like this meant to be funny video. And the group chat was like silent after this video was posted. And I was like, maybe he didn't mean to post it in here. He knows that Kyle and I are Democrats. He's a loving person. He probably wouldn't need to do this. Felt super, super awkward. But I realized there's not a ton to say here, and it's not that big of a deal. And so it was easy to send a text message and be like, hey, new boundary. Let's stay away from political humor. We don't all agree on things, and we know that. So I think regardless of what the intention was here, I know that you are a loving person. I know that you love me. Let's just have a new rule. We're not going to do political humor in this like mixed group right now. I think it'll just make us uncomfortable and awkward. If there's more than that to say, like let's say that this thing had been like especially, I don't know, I don't need to elaborate. You guys are smart people. There's lots more to say, but it's low intensity feeling. Then let's go ahead and just hop on the phone real quick. Give them a call. If there's not that much to say or learn, like maybe you've already done 105 rounds with this topic and there's just not that, it's like what else is there to even say? Or whatever has happened, it's like it's already very clear where this person stands or where you stand, whatever the situation is, but you have lots of feeling about it. That's a time when I would encourage you, before you reach out, get in touch with your sounding board. Who are the people that have earned the right to speak into your life and maybe help you attach to curiosity instead of judgment? Maybe help you get back into alignment. Help you by really speaking into your life and saying, like, this is what I think you maybe need to hear. People that are willing to feed your curiosity and not just your anger. Okay, who will feed your curiosity and not just your anger? That's who's on your sounding board. That's a good time to reach out to those people. If there is a lot of feeling and there's a lot to say and learn, that is where we get into the GSFRBTC, which obviously stands for gold standard for relationship building through confrontation. That is what I will teach in the next session that we do. These best practices, I actually created a flow chart where it's like, let's break down confrontation the way that the mechanics usually go and infuse our mindful improv skills at really key moments to keep things from going off the rails, keep things in relationship building territory. I really believe that the best, closest relationships can start with confrontation. Confrontation isn't the opposite of a healthy relationship. It can be the birthplace of an authentic, meaningful relationship. So we'll get into that. But I hope that little rubric, or whatever you would call that, is helpful to see. Quadrant is helpful to see if you're trying to figure out, like, what is my next thing? Like, how do I make contact? The other thing I wanted to just show you is that this little thing right here showing the different kinds of approach that you might make. So if you've decided to make an approach, there's several different kinds within that gold standard of relationship building. So the first is like new boundary update. I'm just starting there. This is not in any order that you have to do them. New boundary update. So that's kind of like what I did. Hey, no political humor in this group. That would make me feel safest here. Sweet. It was easily enforceable. All was well after I sent that text message. Over here, we have acknowledgement of hurt or tension. So maybe this is where you need to start out, where it's like, I just wanted to let you know, this is kind of like addressing the elephant. If it's been like, I've been feeling this way for a long time. Is this how you feel too? Maybe it's just exploration of intent and differences. So maybe you're just kind of, for the first time, being like, what did you mean by that? Like this for me got started with this comment or this situation, and I just want to understand your perspective. Maybe it wasn't about what you thought it was about. I really have had, since it's been my job to be the one to come in and kind of instigate this type of conversation in people's offices, you might be surprised how often when you just ask that question with sincerity, what did you mean by that you learn something about this person's perspective, and it maybe wasn't about what you thought it was about. And then this smaller portion here says intervention. And I want you to know that the reason it's smaller is that most of the time we can avoid the need to get into an intervention where now there are consequences. If this doesn't change, then this is what's happening. You're not going to see your grandchildren anymore. If this doesn't change, we're leaving the church or whatever. Like an intervention is like, we'll get into it more in the next one. I want to be respectful of time here. But most of the time, I find the need to share with people that that's not the place to start. The place to start is curiosity, where you're still wanting to hear this person's perspective. In an intervention, it's more like, listen to this. I'm not expecting to hear more of your perspective. That's not what an intervention is. It's like, this is the reality that the rest of us are living in. These are the expectations and these are the consequences. That's not what confrontation needs to be. It can be very much about gaining an understanding and truly approaching with curiosity. So if you are feeling behooved to actually make contact with someone in your journey of salvaging a relationship, I would encourage you to write out that little chart and figure out for yourself, okay, like what might be the most helpful form of contact? And then remember that you don't need to start with, this is how I've been feeling for all this time. This is what's going to happen if you don't change. It doesn't need to start there. You can start with something very simple, like what did you mean by that? Or this is how I've been feeling. How does our relationship feel to you? You can start somewhere super, super simple. That's all you need to say. And then listen, and then things can build from there. But we will get more into the tactical approach of confrontation using mindful improv skills in the second training, which I will announce shortly in this group. I'll let you know when. The date and time for that. In the meantime, thank you guys so much for listening, and thank you for being here. And whatever questions you have about this process, I will write out my notes so you can see like kind of a summary of what we covered today. And I'll be happy to answer any questions and get back to people throughout the day today. But thank you guys so much for being here, and thank you sincerely for your interest in being people that are committed to peace building. I cannot stress enough how much I believe that it is not a hopeless situation in our country. I believe that it is not a hopeless situation in our country. I also believe that doing something better than what we're seeing right now, meaning better than the division, better than the name calling, better than the resentment and the fear and the hate on both sides, if we want to do better than that, it is going to take courageous acts of people being willing to say, I want resolution, I want reconciliation, I want needs met, I want justice, more than I want applause from my echo chamber. That's what it's going to take. So in closing, I want to invite you into the following beliefs, which are, I wrote these down as well because I was afraid I would get nervous and forget them. I believe in surprising scene partners. I just want you to say that out loud. Even though I can't hear you, I just want you to put your hands on your heart and with me say, I believe in surprising scene partners. And that means I believe that people who are going to vote for somebody else besides who I'm going to vote for can still be on my same team. I believe that people who I have seen be imperfect can build something beautiful with me. I am open to being surprised by finding love and an effective teammate in someone I didn't expect. I want us to believe that. I want us to know that. I don't want us to hope it's true. I want us to know it's true because it is true. I have seen it be true lots and lots of times over again. So thank you guys once again for being here. This matters a lot. Every piece of effort that you put into understanding someone that's different from you, every piece of effort you put into courageous love, making the first move to create acceptance and big love in a relationship, it matters so much. It matters so much. So thank you guys for being people who are about this work. I look forward to reading your comments and questions, and I look forward to keeping this conversation going. All right, be brave, guys. Let's do some courageous scene work.